Good evening, Blues, and welcome to the Manchester is Blues Show Monday night show. I am joined this evening by Cloud, by Tibbs, and by Neil. How are we, gents? Welcome.
Yeah, good, man. Good.
Brilliant.
Yeah, good.
Happy to be here.
Yeah, good to have you. So let's get started by reflecting on the weekend. How do you feel like the performance went against Fulham? Tibbs, I'll go with you, mate, first. What do you feel about the weekend?
I mean, it's a game of two halves, I think. I was obviously really happy at the very end of the game, happy with how it turned out. I was a little bit skeptical, but excited about the lineup, I'm not going to lie, but I think we're going to get into it very soon. And overall, not worried about Fulham and no reason to be in the end.
Out?
Yeah, I mean, it definitely was a game of two halves. The disparity between the first half and the second half was massive. I'm always one who preaches like change and stuff like that in our formation. And I was glad to see the change there because when you have those key injuries to certain players in the squad, these things can come in so massively. And I hope that's why Pep's doing it. A contingency plan is always a great thing to have. But with City, I've seen them at times where they've been amazing to watch, and I've seen times where they've been frustrating to watch. But that night, nothing really seemed to click, and that was the only time I really felt that City were boring to watch. Obviously, there are teething problems with any new formation, so I can take that with a pinch of salt. But what worried me the most was the 3 goals that we scored all came from mistakes. A set piece that we had with John Stones, the penalty with the shove on Varane, and then Jesus, where an error leading to goal, he pounced on it at the right time. Did great to get his shot off. But what we were struggling to create really concerned me in that game.
How about you, Neil? I mean, Cloud's made some great points there. So
Yeah, I agree with him because I think the only real chance that we created by ourselves was, I think, 90th minute when Ferran had a shot from the right. But apart from that, we had nothing in front of goal. But yeah, I think that's natural when you're switching formations, and as long as Pep does not do it in big games, because at the end of the day, 14 points clear, 18th team in the Premier League, you can try some new stuff. So obviously this needs a lot of fine tuning, but as long as he does it in such games and not, UEFA Champions League knockouts, I think, yeah, it's good to see.
I think it was one of the cases of it was just, this is the sort of game now what we'll never ever look back on in history books and remember. It's one of those games, it's just a win, a W on it. There's nothing memorable about it. It was just a win. And by all any means, really. Let's get into the tactics then. We'll start with the surprise that was the 3 at the back. I think nobody in any kind of right world would have predicted he would have gone with 3 centre-backs. Although we have arguably 3 of the best centre-backs in the league, probably 3 of the top 10, you would probably argue. Nobody thought they would have started them all, especially in a Premier League game like that. So Cloud, I want to come to you, mate. Do you think we'll see more of this 3 at the back, and do you think it worked?
I don't think it worked. I think it has potential to work. It's actually the sort of formation that I figured we would use when the Messi question was posed around. I'm not going to get into that, but and I can see it working with Aguero, where obviously his pressing has lacked somewhat in his later years in his knees, and Jesus can sort of bring that to him. What I worry about was in that game, it seemed to be that because Jesus is on the left and sort of coming in, it kind of took the space away from Aguero to work in. I don't like looking at the stats that much, but Aguero had as many ground jewels as he had passes in that game, which shocks me. So he was actually having to work in ways against his strengths, really, sort of going for goal. And when we all saw his name on the team sheet, we were probably loving it, getting to see him play again. But I felt like we never really got to see him play in that game. He never got too much time on the ball. So I think a little bit of fine tuning, but if we get like an injury crisis on the wings or something like that, I think it's something we've absolutely got to bring about in the future. And Neil brought up a great point. While we're 14 points clear in the league, why not give it a shot? What's the worst that could happen? I'm not going to finish that, but while we're 14 points clear, it's worth trying.
So what do you think then, Neil? Do you think this 3 at the back thing is going to be something we'll see again, especially in the Premier League?
Yes, it needs a lot of work, no doubt. But in principle, in possession, it's not too different from our original system because we have a 5-man front line, the front 3, and then the 2 wing backs pushing up. In midfield, we have a 2 or a 3 because John Stones pushed up a lot. So in principle, there was not too much of difference. But I think in a way, I was happy to see Aguero work, because in the looking at the stats, he applied 2 less pressures than Jesus. So through the 90 minutes, he applied 17 pressures and Jesus did 19. So it shows that, yeah, this wasn't the Aguero type of game where, he gets chances and he buries them, but it shows that he's still able to work off the ball. And more importantly, another thing that I liked was in our attack, he dropped off quite often from the front line, because Pep does like, sort of false nine. You can't call him a pure false nine, but he dropped behind Jesus and Ferran quite often to link up the play or to create space for them to run into in behind. So I think we didn't get to see the typical Aguero type of game, but we got to see some other things from him, which I would say they're decent. Yeah.
What about you, Tibbs? Do you think this 3-5-2 worked?
I'm probably the least tactically minded here of the bunch. But for me, I think just trying to think rationally about it, Pep wouldn't have tried it if he wasn't thinking about something else in the future. So I was listening to a different podcast mentioning how maybe that's something that he wants to work on ahead of maybe a bigger clash. And so, obviously it needs work, but I'm not against it on paper if everyone can find their way of connecting better than they did, especially in the first half.
Do you think it was a case of we're playing this formation to learn it has to have a plan B, or do you think it was a case of just rotation is forcing me to start with a 3 at the back?
That's a very good question.
Yeah, so I think rotation did play a key, but we could have easily played with a 4 at the back. So I think Pep did actively try out a new system, although rotation obviously helped, but that was not the main focus, I think.
So if you look at the performance as a whole and taking away the 3-0, and bearing in mind that Fulham were maybe 5th or 6th in the form table for the last I think it's about the last 8 to 10 games, they've been up in the top 8, top 6, top 4 of the form teams. So given their recent resurgence and the form that they've been in, and taking away their position in the Premier League, because I think the form table reflects more on the performance that was yesterday. How do you think that overall coming away with a 3-0 win helps us really there, Cloud?
I mean, Fulham have played quite well recently. Can't take that away from them. But excluding that, it was so strange to see us have to fight so hard for a win. It seemed like Fulham, they played well. They took the game to us and they nearly scored at quite a few moments. But it was the sort of game where you never really felt that we were in control. And that was something I hadn't seen from City for quite a while, even against Manchester United. I felt that we played better against United than we played against Fulham. There's a lot of reasons as to why that was, but I could see the issues while the game was happening. I saw a lot of directness go through on the right-hand side. Cancelo was absolutely phenomenal down there, but Mendy, on the other hand, seemed completely out of place. And I can't criticise him too hard because of how long he's been out of the team. And I have asked for him to come back in recently. But because of that, it allows Fulham to shift sort of horizontally, because we're prioritising that right load so much more. And we were never doing the quick switch like we used to on the left. We didn't have Foden or Sterling or anyone on the left as that danger. And it really caused an issue with us. So the performance wasn't great, but it's nice to see us trying new things. It's nice to see that, especially with Pep, 14 points clear. Most managers would probably get a bit complacent, but he's shaking things up all the time.
Yeah.
And with his comments prior to Mönchengladbach as well, it's nice to see how he's keeping people grounded.
I don't know if you've noticed this, but the way teams set up against us, we saw a bit of it at Southampton. They had a goal. Fulham had a goal. They had a goal. And I've never seen a team play the ball across the back four as deep as they were. They were literally touching the corner flag with their centre-backs at times. They ping it into the middle into like the typical Rodri Fernandinho role, and it goes straight diagonal right to the corner flags. And that was the one thing I can take away from Fulham, is they were quite innovative in the way they approach things. And I mentioned this in our last podcast about Scott Parker being a really innovative manager. So I think for me personally, to come out of that with such a flattering scoreline and how difficult the game was, you know, it's a real bonus that we managed to do this while tinkering with the formation, you know, and the personnel. What do you think about that, Neil?
Yeah, so I think what we tend to forget is how crazy congested this season has been. I mean, to win 21 games on the bounce when you're effectively playing once every 3 days, it's just phenomenal. It's insane, and that's spoiled us a bit. So overall, when you look at how all the other teams, not just in the league but throughout Europe, are performing, they're dropping off. You know, from Bayern to Barcelona, Real Madrid, everyone. I think winning 3-0, no matter how you do it, is always a good job. Doing it with a new system is even better a job. And more importantly, I think defensively, I think the main problem with this system was the defense, because it's a back three instead of a back four. So that changes a lot. But Fulham only got an XG of 0.3 in the game. So their expected goals was 0.3. So I think we didn't do a bad job at all there. So I'm pretty happy with how it turned out.
So if we have a quick look at some key performances from certain players, I've signalled out 3 here. There could be anything of 8 to 11 players we could have chose here. But it was nice to see Ferran get a start and have a good duration of time. Now, how did you think his performance went, Tibbs? How do you think he went?
I saw a lot of criticism towards him, and I would say, like, to other people, other fans like us, I would say to be patient. I liked what I saw from him. He obviously didn't score, but he's also been out of the team for so long, or just playing a couple of minutes in the last 5 to 10 minutes of the past few games that I can think of. If the expectation is that we're going to get Champions League Torres every week, that's obviously unrealistic. He did great, but you know, he's only 20 years old. It's really crazy how good he is. We can't have the expectation that it's going to be another Foden. That would be absolutely unrealistic. So I think next season is going to be him really blossoming with us, the same way that we've seen previous transfers take, you know, about a season or so to get adjusted. So I'm not worried at all, and happy that he got the start.
How do you feel about it, Cloud? Are you on those same sort of lines?
Yeah, I mean, I don't think he had the greatest performance, but he had a good performance. Took a bit of adjusting. You know, he's come back from a long time out. He's in a new system. He's having to tailor it. He did at times look uncomfortable, but he got into great positions. And, you know, of course, Neil said, you know, great opportunity at the 19th minute, but he didn't put it away. To people who complain about that or maybe blast him for that, well, he actually won you a penalty, which Aguero scored off, and he won that penalty by dispossessing someone. So, you know, it's, you lose some, but you win some, and he tries hard. In terms of the 3 key players that stood out for me, though, I would probably have to say Jesus. I think Jesus did brilliant. His work rate was fantastic. You know, getting the second goal for us really changed the dynamic of the game. Sometimes he receives the ball with his back towards goal, which is a problem, but it's something he can work on. He's still very young. Cancelo, I don't really need to go into too much detail, it's phenomenal. But John Stones coming up on that right wing, he was incredible. He really, really was. It's a bit like Ruben Diaz, where I'm running out of superlatives for the pair. I really am.
Yeah, they're definitely in the moment of their lives at the minute, and they're not even at the peak. And that's the good thing about it, is they are. Look at the players they are now, and if they can continue on this sort of trajectory, we're in for some very good times here.
Yeah.
Just carrying on for what Cloud said there about Jesus, Neil. He's been criticised a lot, but if you look at his stats and I don't have his stats at hand, but everyone knows his stats are if you can grab these anyway.
Very good.
He's got like 90 plus goal contributions in 100 and something starts. You know, I was starting to see now more consistency. You know, now he's starting to become. He's still only a young man. He's what is he? 23 now. You know, he's starting to mature. He's starting to find his place on the pitch. Do you think that we're starting to see that in the games, especially because he played? I thought his contribution against Fulham was decent.
Yeah, I think Jesus' stats are really good, but what he brings to the team cannot be, you know, displayed on a stat sheet, because his work rate off the ball, it's one of the best in the league, and that, I think that's a easily overlooked facet of our style of play, because, you know, our attacking is brilliant, fluid, everything, but what facilitates it is our pressing, which helps us to recycle possession very quickly. So we have so much of the ball, so we can use it slowly, gradually build up, and then attack, with all the great players we have. So in our press, I think Jesus is by far the most important player we have. And what he brings in terms of pressing is, I don't think any other forward in the league could match that. And to add to that, as Cloud said, he was receiving with his back turned to goal. But if he was a striker, I wouldn't be happy about that. But he was inside left forward, I'd say that was his position. So he did it fairly well. I don't think he lost the ball too often, or I don't think his touches were loose or anything. So he did that fairly well. And yeah, obviously got the goal. That was a result of good awareness and capitalizing on a mistake. So I think it was a very good performance again.
And coming back to the front three with Ferran, I feel like it's obviously Aguero and Jesus have played together before. They know how. So including Ferran into here and making him try to fit as well, I thought was an interesting experiment. So happy that he got that as well.
Yeah.
So Cloud mentioned around obviously John Stones and Cancelo, but given the game against Southampton, how difficult it was for Laporte, he had, by his standards, a poor game. How do you feel he bounced back against Fulham? He had like 100% success rate in duels across everything, headers, tackles, blocks. He was literally as good as you can get as a solid centre back. How do you feel it went there, Neil? How do you feel like he recovered? I mean, I said he would. I said on the last podcast he would probably start just to get that bad game out of his system.
Yeah, he was brilliant as well. I mean, we talk about John Stones and Ruben Dias all the time, and they're just phenomenal. But we have to remember this guy Laporte. He was crazy during 18-19. He was by far our most important player, and we missed him so badly last season. But yeah, he still got it. I mean, he was 100% success rate in ground duels, 100% success rate in aerial duels, 95% pass success rate. Just brilliant. I think again bounced back brilliantly, and again Southampton too. Gave away the penalty, yes, but apart from that, nothing terribly bad with him. Yeah, it was not a good performance. By his standards, poor, but yeah, nothing terrible.
What about you, Did you notice an improvement in those back-to-back games?
Yeah, I don't know if I've never really paid attention to it before watching our centre backs play, but I definitely noticed, and this is especially true for Laporte during build-up play, that he tends to go up the pitch a lot more now. And to some extent, it could be scary or worrying because you're just thinking, okay, but hey, don't go up too far there. Be careful with the counter attacks. But I'm quite excited, and again, like also being French, I cannot wait for him to be hopefully in the future into the national team. I think the day that this happens, I'm going to open a bottle of champagne.
Yeah,
so
he's
go on, Cloud. Go for it, mate.
He's a phenomenal player, and one of the things that stood out to me, a lot of the times in a Pep system, the defenders really only get moments to show what they're worth. But I can't remember which Fulham player it was, but they got past Diaz and they were through on goal. But Laporte would already sense that danger and he cut it out. And that doesn't get spoken about enough because it's not a shot on goal, because it's not on the highlight reel. But it did happen. And if he wasn't there to sniff that out before it happened, that was going in. He was through on goal against Ederson. And, when you're one-on-one with the goalkeeper, you can't expect for your goalkeeper to turn into, 𝗏𝗏𝐼. So for him to be there and make that was absolutely phenomenal. But much like you said, he had a bad game. Cancelo had a bad game against United, and look how he's come back. It's the same with Laporte. You'll have a bad game, the manager trusts you, and you see they're literally fighting for each other in the team. And I love seeing them attacking the ball, not just going for it, attacking it.
And I think it's noticeable in. If we just flash back a few years to when John Stones started to lose, go backwards a bit, and we had Otamendi was not at his best. These players are coming for a game, maybe 2 games, and they'd be poor, and they would struggle, and they would be back out of the team. And this is what I was looking for in Laporte. He's in and out of the team, and he's not on any other reason than the fact that Diaz and Stones are at the minute a better partnership. Yeah. But what I liked from Laporte was when he came in, he had a bad game, and he could have quite easily gone the other way. You could have had another bad game, and you probably wouldn't have seen him again for 3 or 4 games, and then that starts the downward spiral. The game against Fulham, he stepped up in probably the most noticeable way as a centre-back was to just be an absolute unit at the back.
Yeah, and I think for our centre-backs, a lot of credit has to go to Ruben Dias. Like that guy, he's 23 years old, but he's such a leader. he's superb, and he's the type of centre back who makes everyone around him look a lot better. And we can clearly see that with John Stones, and I'm sure it's helping Laporte as well, even though he's brilliant. Having someone like Diaz next to you is just unreal.
So if the last thing we talk about on the Fulham game was Aguero, obviously he scored his first goal in 14 months or something, was it? Obviously it wasn't his mercurial best, but for me it's nice to see that he's getting some game time. He got criticised about how he didn't score and he didn't look his sharpest, but I don't know if you've noticed it when that first goal went in, you could feel when Stone scored, he was like, get in there. He could see it's like he's up for this, isn't he? And that to me is like, you feel like he's buying into this kind of thing now where he's like, I need to put it in rather than, because he could have faded away and he could have gone away and his money and his legacy is always going to be intact. But for me, just seeing that little bit of spirit, we all know he's probably not back to match fitness, but he seems to have that little twinkle, doesn't he? He wants it. And I don't know what you guys feel about that.
Yeah, it's something that it always warms your heart. Because with him, he's one of those that started the whole, that generation of the 𝐓𝐶 𝐄𝐧𝐝 era. And I always remember, I can't remember which game it was, but I always remember when I think we were winning 1-0 and he went to go the long way off the pitch, the stall time and everything. And the referee said, no, you go up and you walk around, the new rule they brought in. And as he was walking around, we scored, we went 2-0 up. And you saw him throw his hands in the air and he ran back on the pitch.
Yeah, he went to celebrate. Yeah, I remember.
I love that. I love that about him. It brings a smile to your face. And regardless of tactics or anything like that, the fan, even if it's the worst opponents for him to go up against, he's never scored against, I still want to see him start every single time.
Yeah. So as a segue into the next thing we're going to talk about, there was something that popped up post-game on Reddit, and I'll just read a few parts of this. The person claims to not being in the know, but they have connections to Manchester in such and such a place. He states that on Friday afternoon during the Pep Guardiola press conference, he called out players who didn't work hard enough, and they will be on the bench more regularly. Sterling then came up to Pep following the press and basically asked him to clarify position, and that led to him being potentially dropped, and that included Foden as well. They were both apparently part of this confrontation. Now, obviously, then the game happened and both of them weren't starting. And since then, Raheem Sterling has come out on Twitter and publicly said, some crazy rumours on socials today. That's absolutely false. Looking forward to the big week with the team. Have a good night, lads. So Sterling's been quick to quash that. But my question to you guys is, even if this had happened, do you think it's a bad thing? Well, I'd like to come with you there. Do you think it's a bad thing that this might have happened anyway, or does it show hunger and character?
No, I think it definitely shows hunger and character. I've made no secret about the last couple of weeks. We've definitely slowed down a lot recently. I've seen it in the performances. So if it did happen, it's Pep's way of shaking it up. The Champions League is just round the corner with Mönchengladbach. I don't personally think there is any truth in these rumours. I think it's just because, the game's coming up, they were benched. But if it was the case, it's, Pep's way. It's similar like with his comments he made the other day where he said this is his worst team of so many years. You look into it and you can see he was actually saying, well, we've won nothing yet this year. So far, we are the worst team because we've not won anything. It's the whole Schrodinger's equation sort of thing, how I put it earlier in Discord. And there's nothing wrong with competition for places. There's nothing wrong with telling people, look, you're taking your place for granted. I need you to start showing me that you deserve it and that you'll earn it.
How about you, Tibbs? How do you feel about this potential dressing room drama that's been quashed?
I think whether it happened or not, it's probably just way overrated from, our current phase with social media, with everything. Anything is going to be amplificated to, big drama and clicks and whatnot. And I mean, if it did happen, both of them professionals. We also know that Pep, coming from Spain, Catalonia, hot-blooded, so not afraid to criticize people. We see how he is on the sideline when he gets very agitated, positively or negatively. So not really worried, to be honest. Raz has played and started in how many games recently? So it was the first the first time in a while that he was on the bench, I think. And yeah, that he was dropped, sorry. The guy needed rest anyways. So really, like, I'm not worried. Like, we have so many games coming up. We're still in the running for 4 titles. Everyone is going to get a chance to play. I'm not worried.
I have a question for you then, Neil, based on coming off that. Would you feel it to be strange if there wasn't these kind of questions asked by players when they're not playing? Do you think it's better to have these players potentially being upset that they're not starting and just accepting it and just going on with it? Do you want this kind of, I feel I deserve more when I'm not playing sort of attitude from the players?
Yeah, I mean, of course you should, because that's what gets you to fight, and that's what gets you to improve yourself and then start. But well, Sterling, I mean, as Tib said, he started everything now. Guy needed a break, so I don't think he'd have problems like that. But yeah, you should want to start. You should want to play every week to be able to improve yourself and as a result improve the team. So yeah, that's good to see always.
So I think we're all in agreement that it's just a nothing story, as he said.
Yeah.
But even if it was, it doesn't bother me that even if it was a problem, as long as he's scoring, like I always
he's in the squad for Gladbach, right? So
yeah, I always look back at teams over the yesteryear, and you go back to. I always refer to this because it's like I grew up in that era, but Man United during the 90s. Subsequently, you found out that some of the players hated each other, absolutely hated each other, and they hated the manager, and they didn't really care. But look at the trophies they won. At the end of the day, when you sat at home after you've retired with all your money and you've got all these trophies, you can hate as many people as you want, but you've been successful. So what does it really matter?
Yeah.
And again, like a month and a half, 2 months ago, it was about Laporte and saying that, maybe he's not making the team or something happened. But look at him now, like two back-to-back performances and improvement as well.
That will take us on to the Gladbach game. We're obviously ahead on goal difference in this head-to-head game, but what do we think is going to be the starting 11 for this game? Given that nobody in the world can predict Pep's starting 11s, let's try and dissect this and go with it. I think if I give you guys my team, let's see if we can pick this apart. So I'm going to say Ederson in goal. We're going to start with a flat back 4 of Walker, Stones, Diaz, and 𝗠she. And then we'll have a midfield 3 of Kevin De Bruyne, Rodri, and Gundogan with Mahrez, Jesus, and Sterling. I just feel this is probably our strongest team, barring maybe Cancelo to come in there, but I feel like maybe Walker played all right. And he could probably do a few more games there. And it's not a dead rubber, but it's a game that a little bit of rotation might not hurt. So pick it apart, guys. Pick apart that team for me. What do you think, Cloud? You go.
I'm going to pick it off like one section at a time. So the goalkeeper and back 4, I'm with it completely. The only thing that I would change is probably Walker for Cancelo. There's not much in it. I just think Walker's more prone to giving away a penalty. And I think with a solid back line, I don't think... Do I think Mönchengladbach can score 2 against us without a penalty? Probably not. If we get a goal in, do I think they can score 3? No, I don't. And that's why I'm going to go for that safety thing. I don't want to take this Champions League for granted. Because just cutting
out an error, taking the error out of the equation straight away.
Exactly. That's fine. We can rotate more. We can rotate more in the Premier League because we've got that cushion. In the midfield, I completely agree with you. Midfield, I'd keep that exactly as it is. The argument will come in for Bernardo because of his work rate, slotting into right wing back as he does from times. That's also a great counterpoint. The reason I think that won't be the case is because Pep's mentality, the way he is moving forward, he's going to think, okay, well, we can try and hang on for 2 goals, but when have I ever done that? Let's draw first blood.
Yeah.
And then front 3, I like Mahrez there. I think Mahrez has played quite well recently, and he's actually changed the way that he plays a little bit. If you watch, not so much being selfish, but he can come inside a bit more, or he's actually been running far out and assisting. He doesn't do tap-ins, which isn't what we normally go for. But I think in this game and the way that he is, definitely. Jesus, for his work rate, overloading the midfield, absolutely, he's a shoo-in for me. Left wing, normally I would say Foden, but because Sterling has been out for 2 games, he's got to play tonight. Bring him in on that left wing and then see what he can accomplish, see what he can do.
What about you, Neil? Can you pick apart it? Can you add anything to that? Do you want to change anyone?
Yeah, so from past experience, I hope Pep takes this very, very seriously. So Fulham was a proper experiment. So I don't think we'll see too many of the same starters. So yeah, Ederson in goal, no doubt. Defense, I'd go with what you said. So Walker, Diaz, Stones, Zinchenko. Then midfield, I really want Bernardo. He has to be there. The one time we didn't play him, Man United, you know what happened. He has to be there. He helps us defensively as well quite a lot because of his pressing and everything, and of course dropping into the wing back position. So yes, Bernardo. I'd like to see De Bruyne and Rodri. Front three, Mahrez. He's in the form of his life, I'd say, for us at least. So yeah, he's got to be there. Yeah, Sterling hasn't played for 2 games. He's got to start, and Jesus for his work rate. So yeah, that'll be my team.
So Tibbs, given in mind that us three have pretty much been in agreement, let's see if you can be the devil's advocate here and play the Pep card. What would be the alternative? What would be the alternative to what we should kind of suggested there? What would be your, like, if you're in Pep Guardiola's shoes now and you can pick this team, what would you go with?
Big shoes to fill. Well, obviously Ederson in goal. I do like that back four of Zinchenko, Diaz, Stones, and Walker. Yeah, I mean, obviously there's no way to know what goes on in Pep's head, but I have to side with you guys on this. Then in the middle, it would be strange for me not to see Kevin being back. Let me double check. I don't think he played over the weekend at all, right?
The reason, let me just jump in there quickly. The reason I put KDB in is because his form hasn't been great. He's had one maybe decent game out of the last 4 since he's come back from injury, and I feel like get him in there, get him 80 minutes and just get him playing, get him ticking over again. This is what we need, and this is the sort of game where he's going to be able to do that.
I feel like we would need to have either KDB or Gundogan.
Yeah.
For this game. Now, which one of them? Not sure. It's still strange for me not to see like KDB regularly, I guess, because similar to Sterling, we're so used to seeing them start the majority of the game. So there's that. Obviously, I think Fernandinho would be primed to start this game. That would give us some stability. And for the rest is where I'm a little more confused. I really do like the lineup that you guys have predicted. I would love to see Foden in there, maybe. So that would make Kevin, Fernandinho, Foden, and then Mahrez, Jesus, and Sterling, I think.
So it would Foden in midfield.
I would think so.
It's a good shout for maybe getting him in like midfield. But so let me just put this to you now. Now we've seen Aguero start a couple of games, and Jesus is back fit, and he's obviously very agile. He can play in multiple positions. Do you think we've seen the end of the false nine? Now we've got we've got strikers. Do you think we're going to see more false nines going forward?
With Pep, there's forever false nine. So I don't think he loves the false nine. I mean, he made it. So yeah, you're going to see more of them, maybe in different forms, right? So as I said, in the Fulham game, so Aguero did drop deep and create space in behind. So that's not a pure false nine, but there are elements of the false nine being used. So we could see more things like that. Maybe like not an outright false nine like Bernardo, but maybe using a striker, Jesus, Aguero, as a sort of a false nine, while also keeping them, in the end of the moves at the sharp end. So yeah.
What about you, Claude? Do you think we're going to see more false nines, or now we're going to go more traditional with a front man?
I sincerely hope not. I hate the false nine with a passion. I'm making no secret of that. What I would say is when we had that little injury crisis where Jesus wasn't fit, Aguero wasn't fit, we also struggled to score goals. That's a bit of a problem. Pep likes to play the midfield as much as he can in as many positions as he can, and he does have purpose, particularly in like the Liverpool system, or at least the system they were playing. But because we have Cancelo move into that midfield, for me personally, when I watch the game, I don't see us overloaded in midfield that much. So it kind of takes away the point of the false nine for me, And sometimes Gundogan will move up, go into that area, and the whole mcfc type thing. But what I look back at is when Aguero was fit, it's all like 17, 18, 19, wasn't an awful lot of false nine. And when Pep was at Bayern, wasn't an awful lot of Lewandowski playing as a false nine, because you have those out-and-out strikers. And if I throw this name into the hat, which everyone's talking about, if Haaland came to City, would we see him being asked to play as a false nine? And if the answer for that is no, then the false nine is because we lack that striker option, and it's a good alternative, but not the mainstay of the system. And that's just how I personally see it.
Yeah, see, I'm with you there, Claire. I feel like it was more of a necessity rather than a choice. Well, this now we've all kind of set this team, maybe one or two players out in stone. Tomorrow, we'll see this next game against Gladbach. It's going to be 5 at the back with 3 false nines. And you just know this is going to happen, don't you? 3 false nines.
Yeah, Gundogan as a striker.
Yeah, Gundogan, Bernardo, and Kevin De Bruyne as strikers, and you got Fernandinho, Rodri, and Foden behind him. It's like, okay, Pep, thanks. So given we've chosen a team between us, how do you see this game playing out in terms of the score? 𝐓𝐡𝐞 𝐄𝐧𝐝, mate. How do you feel like? What do you think the final result will be in the performance?
Gladbach has just been really poor since their coach announced that he was going to move to Dortmund next season. And even this weekend, I think they lost again. Like it's been, I could have my stats wrong here, but I think it's been like 5 or 6 in a row at this point.
They've, I think they've lost every single game after Rose announced he was leaving, and ours was our first leg was the second game, and they've lost all of their Bundesliga games, so they're down to 10th, and they got knocked out of the DFB Pokal, which is the German Cup. So yeah, they've not had fun.
So needless to say, they're in shambles. So my head tells me this should be a 3-0 win for us. Yeah.
What about you, Neil? What's your thoughts?
Yeah, last time I said 2-0. We had a 2-0. I'll take another 2-0.
2-0. 3-0. Cloud?
I think 4-0. There's no real reason why. It's just an arbitrary number. But I do think from the first minute to the 90th minute, it's going to be City all the way, regardless of what the score shows. And once we start scoring the first or the second, I think they're gonna crumble really, and know there's no way back.
So for the process of continuation, I'm going to go 5-0, and we've got it covered really. So it's
2, 3, 4, 5.
2, 3, 4, 5. Yeah. So it's either be 1-0 or 0-0 or something like that, and we'll all be like started going, cheers, Pep. But I think going for this game, I think it's just a case of the result matters.
Yeah,
performance doesn't get it done. Another game chalked off. And that'll move us on to like the next thing I want to talk about is Zinchenko publicly saying that the quadruple is something that the players think about, and Pep has quashed him by saying Zinchenko's a young man, basically focus on your next game. So in one-word answers, I'm going to put you on the spot here and say the league's almost won. We're in one final. We've got one foot in the quarterfinals of Champions League. We have an FA Cup game at the weekend. Is the quadruple a possibility? So, in one word, Cloud.
Yeah.
Yeah. Neil?
Maybe.
𝐓𝐡𝐞?
Yeah.
A possibility, yes.
Possibility, maybe. And
that's more than one word.
Yes is the word. Yes is the word.
Oh, but now we can now I've all got your opinions on that. It's never been done by a British team to win a quadruple, including the Champions League. I mean, we've been in this position before, maybe twice before, have we? We've been at the stage of the season where we've had a chance to win this, and obviously we've crumbled in the Champions League. At what point in the next maybe 3 games, so that'll be another league game and the Champions League and the FA Cup.
Yeah.
For those of you that have said yes, maybe a possibility, at what point does then it become a more firm? At what point of these next 3 games do you start to feel like these 3 games have knocked another bit more doubt of it? How close are we going to be to that?
Well, for me, until we're winning in the 89th minute of the Champions League final, I'm not going to say yes because of our history in the competition. But I tell you, this season, right, 17, 18, 18, 19, both the times we won the league. We march the league, but that was mainly because of our attack. Our defense was not very good. This season we have a proper defense, and this defense will be really, really important in the Champions League, where we will face quality sides and we will need some really, really good defensive performances. So I would say we have a better chance than 17, 18 or 18, 19, but I'm still not going to get far ahead of myself. So maybe.
What about you, 𝐓𝐶?
We've got the right defense in place, like Neil said. I think sometimes you just need to be able to grind a 1-0 victory. So if any City team from the past few seasons is able to do it, I think it's going to be this one.
Yeah.
To answer your question, however, I don't know when I'll feel comfortable. I think, you know, I'm not gonna lie, I can see ourselves getting to the next stage of the Champions League, and then whatever next game comes up, whatever next team, you know, if we have to play against Bayern Munich, I might get worried then. So yeah.
Closing thoughts on that one, Cloud?
Yeah, I mean, it's always been a possibility. Pretty much every season, you know, we're always in the talk of it. At the moment, as our rate of doing it's probably a lot higher. There's no one, if you look at the league table, there's no one really in there who I look at, I think, oh, you know, they're a really dangerous team. Whereas before, I'd look at Liverpool and I thought, oh. But even, you know, United, when they beat us 2-0, even then I was watching them. They played well, but they don't strike fear into me. So if we don't get complacent, if we work hard and we don't experiment too much, absolutely we can do it. And it's probably one of our best chances to do it with the lack of competition. The Champions League is really where it's going to be made. And there's a lot of teams in there who look dangerous. Obviously, 𝐓𝐶 mentioned Bayern Munich. I'm going to mention another one. 𝗏𝗏𝐶𝐞's Chelsea look absolutely devastating right now. They're probably in the Premier League, the one team I don't want to play. You know, I haven't seen enough of them yet. Maybe on that new manager sort of hype, like a lot of teams are. But if we came up against Chelsea, I wouldn't be taking that as a guaranteed win at all.
He's such a good fit for them.
Yeah.
There's one final thing I'd like to add, which is overall in Europe this season, everyone has, as I said, been really poor. So if you look at Germany and Bayern, usually by this stage, they'll 15 points clear. Right now, they're still fighting Leipzig. In Italy, I think all of the top 4 or 5 are not in the Champions League. In France, PSG are surprisingly having to fight for a title. And in England, of course, we're miles clear. And as far as United go, they don't strike fear in me because they often rely on counter-attacking football, and I don't think counter-attacking football can win you titles. Win you games, won't win you titles. So yeah, I think England is pretty much sorted. And Spain, Barcelona, they're not exactly great. Real Madrid also, they're struggling a bit. And Atleti, they're leading the league, but recently they've dropped off quite a bit and they're trailing in the Champions League. So overall, if you look at it, if you made like if you calculate some coefficient or whatever based on league points and anything, I think at the moment we are on paper the best team in Europe. That does not necessarily mean that we translate it into Champions League, but on paper we are the best team in Europe right now.
I think that's a great point to end on there. One last little thing before we end the show, and I'm going to pass this over to you, Neil. You mentioned this in our pre-chat. Liam Delap tonight, another hat trick. The floor is yours, Neil. Do you want to tell us about it and what he's been up to?
Yeah, he's brilliant. He's just, I think the best part, what I liked most about it is early on in the game, he had a one-on-one and his shot was saved. So, like often you could get demoralized or, you lose a bit of confidence after that, but then he goes and he scores a hat trick. So that's what that's what really encouraged me. So that was really nice to see. But yeah, he scored 19 goals in 14 Premier League 2 games this season, which is just mad. And I think the all-time record before this was 15 for a whole season, and he still has like 6 games left. So under 23 football is just not for him. So next season I would like to see him go on loan. There's rumors that if Brentford get promoted, they'd be in for him, and I'd really like to see him go to Brentford because they excite me. They're a good team. But if that does not happen, I would prefer that he go to a championship club, simply because there he would be guaranteed a starting spot pretty much week in, week out, given how good he is. I still think he needs one more season before we can call him Premier League level. And at City, where he's going to have to compete with Jesus for sure. If Aguero extends him, or if Aguero doesn't extend, then I'm sure we'll get one new striker, Holland, Lukaku, Kane, whatever. We'll not get into that, but he will have to compete with two world-class strikers, and he's still not at that level yet. So I'd like to see him go on loan next season.
So are we all in agreement that that's the natural progression for next year is to come out the under-23s and go to another team and get a run out? Or do you feel like having him around the first team, like we did with Foden, playing with these players week in, week out, do you think that's more beneficial, or do you feel like the loan move would be more suitable? Tibbs, Cloud, what do you think?
I think it could go either way. I wouldn't put it past the club to put him on loan. I also wouldn't put it past the club to keep him with us and have him play predominantly in the early rounds of the FA Cup and the Carabao, maybe something like that. Something where you don't maybe feel the pressure as much if you take that quote unquote risk. But I think next season will be crucial, and maybe 2020. What is it? The next one, 2022 to 2023, he should be making the first team, no doubt, I think.
Yeah, some good points. I think he needs to go out on loan, but I think Neil raised a good point. The club that he goes out to loan is going to be massive. Ideally, a team that's not too far. I don't want to see him go overseas. I think Dave is on the podcast, mentioned this before. We were talking about, Jan Couto and players like that. It needs to be somewhere sort of close, in the league where we can see his progression, see what he's bringing, and go from there. If he goes overseas, I'd be worried he's never going to come back. And he definitely has the talent.
Yeah, that's the kind of thing. It's like a kiss of death. When some players go away, it's like you're going out to be sold, sort of stuff.
You don't hear of them again.
Yeah.
And he's definitely the only player who I look at the moment that I do see some potential for in the future. What it really comes down to with him is who we actually go for. Because the talk of the striker has been going on for a while. And it depends who we bring in. If we do bring in someone like Haaland, we've got Jesus who's 24 and Haaland who's 20? When is he ever going to get game time? It's not viable. But if we keep Aguero for another year, maybe he can stick around the time if he's going to get game time, and then maybe go out on loan. But it really depends on what the marketable strategy is for City in the summer before we can really decide. But he's got to be playing somewhere and say, look, I've done it with these teams. I can do it with the big teams. Because I think with that age, the physicality comes into a lot of managers' heads with it. And we saw that a bit with Foden. We knew he had the skill, but Pep would reiterate the physicality of the league. I've got to be so careful with his development.
Yeah, and I think that with Delap is a bit of a unit in it, so I think he'll adapt to men's football a bit more than he would like sending out a Foden to a team. Yeah, so certainly something to look forward to. Anyways, another one of these promising youngsters coming through that we can all keep an eye on, and especially if he's smashing goals in for fun in these under-23 games. Well,
front three of Haaland, Jesus, and Delap. Bring it.
Who knows? In 5 years, that might be the team. That might be the squad.
Where's Foden?
Yeah, Foden
just behind them.
In the middle.
Yeah. That'll wrap it up for us tonight, lads. I really appreciate your company. We've had a real great chat there, and it's obviously my first time meeting you lot, so I appreciate that. Thank you all for listening. Tibbs, Cloud, and Neil. Hopefully catch you all again soon, and let's hope we can get a nice comfortable victory on Tuesday. So thanks a lot, guys. See you all next time.
See ya.
Yeah.